Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to episode 101 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. It's the first show of the year, and that's why Marissa from Chicago will be here to briefly look back on 2022, and then the two of us will look ahead to what's on the horizon in 2023 at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. Before we get started, I really need to take this moment to thank all of you who listen to the podcast on a regular basis. We recently reached 3 pretty important milestones. Last week, we hit 500 subscribers on YouTube, aired our 100th episode of the podcast, and we made it 6 months in a row, with every new episode reaching more than 1,000 views on YouTube alone. That's in addition to our monthly listener totals growing every single month on the other podcast outlets like Stitcher and Podbean. We couldn't do this without each and every one of you, and I feel like we're building a community that does things the right way. Plenty of exciting stuff is going to happen this year, starting with an after-hours event at Magic Kingdom and the start of Epcot's International Festival of the Arts next week. I will be there for both of those things. This weekend, I'll have vlogs from Disney's Animal Kingdom, where I check out the recently returned Finding Nemo musical and see the holiday decorations one more time before they're taken down for 10 months. I'll also have a dining review from Artist Palette, the quick service dining location at Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort. I was blown away by the meal there, and I think you're going to want to see the food I was able to get for a fairly reasonable price by Disney standards. Make sure you're subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel so that you don't miss anything. Finally, this episode is going live on Thursday, January 5th, and Disney is going to make a major announcement later today. Yes, we know what Disney is going to announce, but it has been embargoed. We are not going to make any announcements before they're supposed to be made public. First of all, that's a great way to end up sharing incorrect information. Before Disney makes something public, it can always change. There are many travel agents who are also aware of this announcement, but have been doing what is asked of them by Disney and not leaking the information. I'm no longer a travel agent and I have no dog in this fight, but I would like for you to pay attention to who's following the rules. Our goal is to be an inclusive and positive community. This includes acting with integrity when it has the potential to cost you business. My goal is to always do my personal business with those who have integrity. Let's get things started by welcoming Marissa back to the show. Thanks for being here, Marissa.
Thank you for having me.
It's the beginning of the year. You know what we have to do now. And first, we're going to take just a quick little look back at the year that was, but then the main source of our conversation is going to be looking forward to 2023 and beyond. We're going to focus mostly on Walt Disney World, but we might talk a little bit about Disneyland as well. So, first of all, why don't you talk a little bit about how many times you were down in 2022 and what were some of your favorite memories?
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is going to make me sound like a total jerk, but let me think. I took 4 trips in 2022. 2 of them were running related, and one was a AP preview related. So I think personally for me, the highlight of those 2022 trips has to be the Guardians of the Galaxy annual pass holder preview, because that was such a cool experience to be able to ride it early, and that ride is just so good.
Yeah, when we talk about new things at Walt Disney World in 2022, that is obviously the top of the list. And I really do love that ride. And I've never seen a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and I can tell you that now because we're not doing trivia at this point. But it is such a good ride. I think almost anyone can do it if you've done some of the other roller coasters. Now, my wife, Courtney, she did it once and she said that's it. It was too intense for her. It felt like she was falling out of the vehicle at certain points. But such a great ride, such a unique concept for the ride. And I got to do one of those AP previews for it as well. I was a little nervous. I'm like, oh, it's a roller coaster. I don't know if I'm going to like it. But the second I got off of that ride, I was like, that was incredible.
Yeah, it's such a good ride. And now that I'm sitting here, I keep thinking of other great moments from 2022, like riding Tower of Terror with you. That
I
was
did Tower of
so
Terror
much fun.
for the first
Oh
time
my
in my
gosh.
life, and I haven't done it since, but I do think I'm more likely to do it now. I know that I have an after hours event at Hollywood Studios coming up in April, and I think without a line for it, I might try and do it again. It is such a well themed ride, even before you get to the drops. And the drops aren't that bad. I don't want to tell anybody to do something that is out of their comfort zone, but I think if you're nervous about it, it's not as bad as some other drop rides.
Yeah, I will say I hate drop towers. I did one once and I was like, absolutely never again, which is why I never did Tower of Terror. It's not like a drop tower. It's a much gentler drop that's more of a bounce. So if that's your reason for not doing it, it might be worth a try.
Now, that was a fun memory. I'm going to say my favorite memory in the parks with you this past year, however, was when we got drenched watching Harmonious in Epcot. That was one of my favorite Disney parks moments ever. We were thinking about doing Harmonious. It was your cousin Natalie, my wife Courtney, and then actually some of our friends from Pennsylvania. We were all thinking about doing Harmonious, and then it started pouring. So we just ducked into one of those stores at the front of World Showcase, waited for the rain to end, and we got the best spot to see Harmonious. That was such a great experience. But then, of course, about 2 minutes into Harmonious, the sky just opened up again, and we got soaked.
It was so much fun though, and it was so worth it. And I feel like at that point, we already had been soaked enough that it didn't make a difference. So it was just fun to sit there and oh my gosh, that view was ridiculously perfect. And then I have to say, so much of Harmonious is being like there's lights projected and you see it like in the water spray. And I feel like the rain almost contrary to what you'd think, made it clearer. Like I felt like I got the best view of those little light animations.
And of course, we both did the Tower of Terror 10 miler back in April. That was another memory. I think my favorite part of that one was running through Star Wars Galaxy's Edge as part of the course. That was so cool. Before the sun came up in the morning, that was one of the places, might have been the only place that I stopped and got a picture, was in front of the X-Wing in the Resistance Forest. Man, was that a fun race.
That was such a good race. And that course was so perfect. Going through Galaxy's Edge, at night like that, seeing it all lit up, and then turning that corner into Toy Story Land, which also was all lit up, and you got to see the lights twinkling above you. I personally am so excited for the 10 miler in 2023, and I really hope they keep the course the same because it's a good one.
It was a great course. I will say that if it is the same course and you are signed up for it, but you didn't do the Tower of Terror 10 miler, the end is boring. A lot of the Run Disney races, you start off boring and then you get into the parks. So when you really need that kick, that energy, then you're seeing all these awesome views. Well, here you get them to start, and then you have to deal with finding that extra gear when you're just running around property on roads that people normally travel and aren't that exciting. But if you can get through Star Wars Galaxy's Edge before the sun comes up in the morning, that is just an experience I will never forget.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible to take that chance. And I know that I'm sure there'll be some people thinking, well, I see it at night, so what's really the difference? And it's a totally different energy, totally different perspective. It's just so much more magical to see it early like that.
You're running through the land with a ton of people, yes, but not everybody's stopping. It is not as crowded as it is during most days when you're there. So if you're there at night, you're just still around a ton of people. And the course has a lot of people, but if you duck off, get a picture with the X-Wing, you really feel like you have this land a little bit not to yourself, but it's so much different than being there on a regular day. You're right. It's hard to explain why, but I do understand. Maybe this is a good opportunity now to turn things to 2023 because I know the two of us are signed up for two Run Disney races, and it's quite possible that eventually we'll sign up for a few more. So this weekend is marathon weekend. So all of the people who are doing dopey, people who are doing their first marathon, this is a really big weekend at Walt Disney World. I don't know if she wants the public knowing, although judging by her Instagram account, she's perfectly fine with everybody knowing. Your cousin Natalie is doing dopey this year, and it's going to be her first marathon. So how exciting is it to see somebody, maybe you're not that crazy, but seeing somebody get ready to do this incredible thing?
I am not going to be doing dopey ever. I'll go on record, and I'm quite confident that I will not be proven wrong there. But seeing all the work that goes into this training is I do not have words for how impressed I am with Natalie and all the training and hard work that she's put into this, and I am so excited for her. I know she's got some great costumes planned that I will not give away, but she's got some really cool costumes planned. And I'm really, really proud of her for even just attempting it. Like, this is something that I will never even attempt. And she's like, yeah, I've never done a marathon before, but I'm going all in and doing dopey.
I remember my first marathon, and if you would have told me that I would have been doing a half marathon the day before, a 10K the day before that, and a 5K the day before that, I never would have been able to do it. I had to give myself off from training the day before I ran my first marathon. There was no way I couldn't do it. And this is just so impressive that she's trying not only her first marathon, but to make it a part of Dopey. It is awesome. And I am so looking forward to hearing all of the stories from her. And if you know Natalie, she'll share them. So,
Yeah, they'll be good stories, for sure.
and then coming up after that, there is the Princess Half Marathon weekend. This is a unique one as far as a lot of the Run Disney races. I feel like this is the one that's maybe the most low key. I'm only doing the 10K for this one because I'm still trying to get back into running after the pandemic kind of slammed into all of my normal routines. And I think this will be a fun one. I know the half marathon has a kind of boring course, even though you do get to go through Magic Kingdom. Then coming up, there's the Springtime Surprise, which I know we mentioned earlier. We'll have the Toy Story 10 miler, which, knock on wood, we are hoping is a similar course to the Tower of Terror 10 miler. And then there will be Wine and Dine, which will happen in November. And then they get ready to reset the whole darn thing for 2024. Run Disney seems to never end. But speaking of Run Disney and 2024, it was just announced earlier this week. We now have a date for the first Run Disney event back at Disneyland and a date to sign up for it coming up January of 2024. That will be the return of Run Disney to Disneyland, and you can sign up on Valentine's Day if you are looking to surprise that special crush or something like that. I'm just trying to find out if I can find somebody who will buy me. That's essentially what I'm. So, if you,
Yeah, same.
I am so excited for this. We talked off air about whether we would actually do it, and I think both of us are not sure if we're going to be able to do this, if we're going to be able to make it work this time, but it's so magical to run through Walt Disney World and to see those, like we talked about earlier, see Galaxy's Edge from a completely different perspective. And running through the castle is so much different than walking through the castle. And to just have that experience at the most magical park, it's really going to be hard to keep me from signing up for this.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I feel like I'm in that position where I'm like, no, I'm not going to sign up. But like the slightest breeze is just going to push me over the edge. I'm real close. Because I think that's just going to be a very cool experience, especially for someone like me who isn't as familiar with Disneyland. I think that not only is it always a cool experience to see the parks in a different way, but this would really be exciting getting to see kind of more of Disneyland that, I normally wouldn't get a chance to see.
So it's not about chocolates, it's not about flowers. Somebody get all of us Run Disney at Disneyland bookings. That's how you find your way into our hearts. Now, Disneyland also has a big celebration coming up. Starting later this month on the 27th, they are going to be celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Walt Disney Company. This is a celebration that I think is also tempting us. Like Run Disney, both of us are thinking about trying to get to Disneyland for this celebration. Later this month, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, the West Coast version with a bonus scene, will open in Disneyland. So I think one of the things about Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at Walt Disney World that has led to some of the negative comments, the people who aren't so positive about it, they didn't like that it replaced the Great Movie Ride. Over at Disneyland, I think this is going to be a much better fit because it's not replacing anything.
Oh, I think it's going to be great. And I'm very excited to hear what people have to say, like you said, when they're not comparing it to a ride that was. And I think especially giving it a bonus scene will help separate it a little more from Walt Disney World's version, so it's not just a copy paste, which a lot of people seem to complain about. So I'm hoping people love it. I definitely enjoy the Disney World version, and I can't imagine this ride getting slammed with negative reviews. It's just too fun.
Yeah, it's fun, and when it's not replacing something that you love, there's no downside to it being there. At the very worst case scenario, it's still taking people from other parts of the park and spreading them out a little more. So that will be a big deal. We're also getting special nighttime spectaculars and a whole lot of merchandise and special snacks like you always get at these celebrations. But I think that 100th celebration is going to be something that people are going to want to experience. Now, heading over to Walt Disney World for 2023. We got some really cool news at the end of 2022, and that's the Walt Disney World Railroad is back. And I almost forget what it's like being at the parks with the railroad. It's been so long since I've ridden it. I think the last time I was on the Walt Disney World Railroad was 2015. So I'm really excited to get back on this ride and just sort of leisurely go around the park. It makes certain parts of the park more accessible. It's easier to be back by Big Thunder Mountain Railroad and just get on that station and take it all the way to the front of Main Street USA. Sometimes that's easier, especially if the parade's going through or something like that, than walking all the way to the front of the park. So excited about this.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm trying to remember, when did construction on this start?
That is a fantastic question, Marissa. I want to say it was 2018, but it might have been
Okay.
early 2019.
Okay. Because I'm trying to remember, I haven't done the railroad in my memory ever at Walt Disney World. We might have done it when I was a kid, but no one can confirm that. So no one in my family remembers that. And I know I didn't do it in 2017 because I was fairly new to adulthood at Disney and I didn't really realize what its purpose was. And then by the time 2018 came around, it was closed. I think it did close 2018. So I'm really excited to get to ride the railroad around the park, especially that Frontierland station. I cannot wait. I think it's such a great way to experience the park. It goes back to, Walt and his love of trains. So that's a nice little homage to have in the parks. But it's like having a second people mover. It's great.
And I think one of the things about the parks that I love, and this was one of the things when they used to have the Skyliner in the park that would go up above Fantasyland from Tomorrowland. And it's fun to see these different layers of motion. You see the trains going through Big Thunder really fast, and then you see the train going behind Big Thunder, and then you see the Liberty Bell going around the rivers of America, and you see the boats coming down Splash Mountain. Like, you see all of this motion, and it's just adding that extra level. There's something that just makes you feel like you're not in the real world when you're seeing all of this happening. And it has been missing for so long. Just hearing the whistle, it has been missing for such a long time. And now it will be going under Tron Light Cycle Run, which is the next thing. And this is the big one. Allegedly opening in spring of 2023, Tron Light Cycle Run. Is it possible that an annual pass holder preview might be something that would get you down here again in 2023?
Oh, I'd say that's definitely a possibility. I'm hoping, I don't think it'll work out this way, but I'm hoping that the pass holder preview will line up with the springtime run. And then it can just be a nice little double dip trip. But I think that it's more likely that the ride will open in April, because this is just pure speculation. But I think that once the 50th ends, they'll want to open something to be like, hey, our big celebration's over, but look at what we've got now. So I would expect an April opening for Tron.
Hopefully that means late March for the pass holder previews. This ride has been under construction for so long, and I know it's become almost a meme in and of itself, a joke that people like to tell about how long this has taken. Disney made the conscious decision that when the pandemic hit and they had to allocate resources, that they were going to allocate those resources to Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind to get that up first. This ride is going to change the complete and total dynamic of Tomorrowland, and it is going to give another huge e-ticket attraction for Magic Kingdom, which is so sorely needed. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in Fantasyland has been open way too long for that to still have 2.5 hour waits on a regular basis. This is going to help that a little bit by having this major e-ticket kind of close to where you get into line for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Now, I was expecting that they would keep Splash Mountain open for a little bit of the beginning of Tron so they could kind of balance out those crowds. But later this month, they are closing Splash Mountain for the retheme to Tiana's Bayou Adventure. What do you think about the timing of the closure? We've already talked about how we are a fan of the retheme and the closure is a good thing. But what do you think about that timing?
I'm of two minds on it. On one hand, like you, I was expecting it to stay open through at least the first month or so of Tron being open just to help balance those crowds because it is a popular ride. I mean, people will stand in line for it, especially on hot days because it's a water ride. But on the other hand, it does make sense for them to close it for their annual January refurb and then just keep it closed to do a full refurb instead of trying to do a little bit of a refurb to keep it going, limping along until, June when they close it for good. So I see why they did it. I think that they might have been forced into it in the sense that the ride needs so much work now. And it's so clear every time you ride that it is in desperate need of so much work that I think they kind of reached a critical point where they couldn't really justify doing a refurb and then closing it. It just made more financial sense to say, you know what, this is it. We're not putting energy into trying to make these animatronics work any longer. They've clearly paid their dues. Let them go into the great animatronic beyond.
And I was also a little surprised that they announced an end date for it because of all the controversy, and we're not going to get into the controversy right now. But I was thinking to avoid the mess that I think the parks are going to have on January 22nd, the last day this ride is in operation. I am not looking forward to that. I am nervous for, like, when they closed Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in Fantasyland, there were people who jokingly held protests, and that was fun, and that was fine, and everybody was a little bit tongue-in-cheek about it, but this one, I just thought one day they were just going to have it closed, and that was going to be how they were going to do it.
Yeah, I am kind of surprised about that, and I'm just preemptively, I'm going to store up like 2.5 weeks of well wishes and just send it to all those CMs in the hopes that that counteracts some of what they're going to have to deal with. Because I can't imagine that all the guests will be very pleasant that day. I'm sure there will be some people with the normal, like, oh, I'm sad. This ride was the first ride I ever rode at Disney, and oh, it has nostalgia for me. That's a bummer. Okay. But on the flip side, I'm sure there will also be people with a lot more aggressive of a stance. And just sending luck to those CMs.
Going to be a lot of red ball caps at Disney that day. Anyway, I also think I'm going to stay off social media for about 2 weeks after it happens. But I mean, I won't because I'm kind of addicted. But I would like to be able to have the willpower to stay off social media for about 2 weeks. It's going to be a mess. And then the ride's going to open and everybody's going to love it. And I think that that is going to be the time when this drama is finally going to calm itself. But that's not going to happen until 2024.
Late 2024.
Late
Yeah.
2024. We are going to go a while without that ride being there.
And I think that, obviously, like you said, we're in favor of this refurb. I think it's going to look fantastic. I'm so excited for the new songs. That's so good. I think that the most difficult part is going to be waiting for the reveal and also having a full 2 summers without a water ride like that at Magic Kingdom. That's going to be tough.
I'll also be really interested to see what's going to happen with Big Thunder Mountain Railroad because it is basically in the middle of nowhere now. Once Splash Mountain is closed for this retheme, you're going to have to really make a conscious effort to either get on the train to get back to that section of Frontierland, or what's the closest ride to it? It's Haunted Mansion or Pirates of the Caribbean. It's going to be tucked in the back. So it's either going to get excruciatingly long lines because it is the only ride back in that section, or people aren't going to go back there. And it's going to be a great year and a half to just get on Big Thunder whenever you want.
Oh my gosh. It would be great if people were like, you know what, this is too much effort. We're not going to head back here. I'll camp out there all day long. That sounds great to me. Give me a 10-minute wait. Oh my gosh, I'll do it for 8 full hours.
That's where we're going to leave things off today, but Marissa will be back next week to finish this conversation. Make sure to follow us all on Twitter. I can be found at Rick_ear. Marissa is at ThinkMickeyBlog, and Sarah Says uses at Sarah Says 84. You can catch me on TikTok at Tall Guy Talks Travel and on Instagram at Rick Dougherty TGTT. Dougherty is spelled Dougherty. One of my New Year's resolutions is to be more active sharing content on all forms of social media, so you can expect a lot of good stuff in the coming year. Episode 102 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Dougherty is coming up next Thursday. Until then, have a great week.